सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Brahman as the cause of the universe, Jagat Karanam, takes on a new name. What is that? Ishvara. Yeah. But I don't like Ishvara. That's why we have been spending so much time getting to know Ishvara. So that these allergies are, this is what is the anti-allergy. These lectures are, hopefully. It's not a matter of like. It's like saying I don't like myself. Yeah, but that also is true, which is why we need the we need the teachings. There is really no Ishvara that is not you. It's you. Yeah, but how to understand? Well, that's why we have to have this elaborate, this extremely elaborate setup, to understand this alone. But why this setup? So that we can understand. But why I have to understand? Let's not forget why we are doing this. So that there is no samsara. What is samsara? All the difficulties. But I don't have any difficulties. Leave the class right now. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Otherwise we get into the circular reasoning. Yeah, you don't have any difficulties. This class is not for you. I'm happy. Okay. That's all this whole thing is about, is knowing that not you are happy because something has made you happy accidentally or someone is making you happy for the next 5 minutes, but that you are the source of that which you seek. That is what this whole thing is about. You are the source, you are the seeker, you are the sought, and there is no power on earth or anywhere for that matter, any of the 14 lokas, to disturb you, to afflict you. Do you know that? Well, that much I don't know. All right, then stay. Don't leave. That's why we have to have such a lot of background. And of course, half the time people have difficulty listening because of the topic itself. And so so therefore this has to be, we have to dwell on it. This dwelling is important, we have to dwell on it. And in this dwelling, slowly things become clear. Yeah. The Ishvara you don't like is you. But what about the Ishvara I like? That is also you. There is nothing other than you. Then why this Jagat? Why we are spending so much time on this manifestation? Because so that we know that it's a manifestation, not a creation. But then why did this Jagat come into being? To exhaust karmas. When was the first karma? When was the first jiva? It is beginningless. It's in cycles of creation. But this is a very nice way for you to get away from not answering questions. You just put it everything cyclically. Why does the Jagat exist? It's all about me? Yes. My karmas to exhaust this entire universe exist? Yes. That itself is an exhausting thought? Yes. And then when was my first karma done? Well, there is no beginning. See, this is how you slip out. Like that oily robber in ancient India, when the guy used to come to rob, the fellow would be just in a minimum clothing, loin cloth, and the rest of him would be all oiled up. This way he could slip through the bars easily. And then if anybody tried to catch him, he could slip out. So this is how you, as a Vedantin, under the guise of teaching, you are just bamboozling my mind by giving all these things and saying that the Upanishad says it and the Upanishad is sacred, I have to have Shraddha, and so now it's all a setup because you have said that the Upanishad is sacred and I have to look at the Upanishad with Shraddha, and then it's keeping on making one claim after another preposterous claim, and then I'm supposed to just sit and drink it all up. What do you think I am? Out of my mind? Why should I listen to all this? This is what it is. Why should I believe in it? Well, thankfully it's not a matter for belief. But how? Just because you said Jagat is a projection, like a baby's throw up. Okay, Ishvara threw up the Jagat. I thought I was having problems because I'm having this, what is that third order of reality called? Pratibhasikam. You just told me yesterday I have to withdraw my projection. Now ask Ishvara also to do the same. Why his projection is all right and my projection I have to withdraw? Not fair. Well, if I ask Ishvara to withdraw his projection, you will not be there. Oh, okay, don't ask right now. Okay, all right. ठीक है. What is the difference between my projection and Ishvara's projection? Your projection, the matter for it. What is the matter for your projection? Memories of hurts and pains and maybe a few nice memories thrown in just for good measure, and mostly hurt, pain, sorrow, ragas, fears, desires. These fears and desires are the raw material for my projections. What is the raw material for Ishvara's projection? Ishvara has fears? No. Thank God. Ishvara has desires? No. Then what is the raw material for Ishvara's projection?
Yes.
Huh? Ishvara, true, but what is the cause? Why Ishvara's, Ishvara was fine being one with everything, correct? Yeah.
Leela.
Huh? Yeah, but why Leela suddenly decides to get up and dance? Huh? Huh, Kim? Actually, the raw material is not much different. Yeah. The raw material for Ishvara's projection, raw material is oneself alone, but the cause, the spuranam that takes place for the creation to come is again your own karmas. Your own, and what are your karmas caused by? If you just take the karmas all the way back, ragadveshas and the ignorance of the jivas. Yeah. So my ignorance is the cause of Ishvara's creation. See? Yeah, exactly. But then why he had to create? Then we have to go another line of reasoning. What creation? Close your eyes. Is there a creation? What is there? Other than you, what is there? Nothing is there. That's why I don't want to get up in the morning, because as soon as I open my eyes, the problems start. As long as they are closed, it's fine. Exactly. So this whole so-called duality has got an iffy nature, and this iffy nature one has to really become acquainted with, and it takes a certain patience, a certain maturity, and some time. That's what it is. One has to become aware of this dependent nature of the projection. And we use the dream state as an example. It's not that you are stuck in Ishvara's dream. That's a horrible thought. Yeah. You know, that's not the idea. The dream is an example to show the abhinnatvam, the non-separateness between yourself and what you project. So similarly, the Ishvara is the whole universe. The universe is manifest in the form of the universe without undergoing any change or lack. You know, and that whole universe depends on Ishvara, like even the pot depends on clay. Every single pot depends on clay, lid depends on clay. And maybe you have a nice Krishna figurine made of clay, that also depends on clay. Everything depends on clay. The whole world of earthenware depends on what? No, not Ishvara here. Earth. Earthenware it's called. Yeah. And this whole Jagat can be similarly called Ishvaraware. Yeah. And that will hopefully stop you from asking the question, where is Ishvara? Because this is all Ishvaraware. Yeah. Until the doubt wears out, you can say Ishvaraware. Body, Ishvaraware. Like earthenware. You know, pot can say earthenware. Clayware. So when I say Ishvaraware, then I stop hopefully asking, where is Ishvara? Yes. How long I have to see this is Ishvaraware? Until all the doubts wear out. That is until then you have to keep saying, keep seeing this. Ishvaraware, everything is just the substance is Ishvara. And the intelligence in the substance, because every substance is not a random manifestation. It's a concerted, intelligently choreographed universe where each thing is useful. There is nothing useless or purposeless. Even the garbage that you throw out, someone will come at 4 o'clock in the morning and pick some things up, bottles and things like that. And then somebody presented, you know, I knew these ladies, and the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law got along very well, you know. They were just so happy with one another. In fact, the husband and the son felt a little left out because they had such a bond. They had such a bond, like a mother and daughter. They were just in love with one another. And then along came some function. Maybe it was the mother-in-law's birthday or Diwali or something. And so the daughter-in-law gave a present to the mother-in-law. And it was a book, a recipe book, because both loved to cook. And so this recipe book title was How to Turn Garbage into Food. And the first recipe was apple skin pie, not apple pie, the peelings of the apple. And then the potato peel sambar or, you know, soup, something like that. It was not an Indian thing. I'm just, it was some Western. Soups made of peels, you know. Yeah. And both the son and the father looked at one another with alarm in their eyes when this book was opened. And the mother-in-law kept it on the dining table. She went inside for some reason, you know. Both of them went inside, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. And when they came back, the book was missing. The men hid it, you know. It was never found again. So, because they had to eat all this. They would have had to eat all this, you know, peeled soup and peeled this and peeled that, you know. So, you think it is useful. You think it is useless and throw it away, but it is always useful. Yeah. If nothing is useful to you, at least for the earthworm finds it very useful. It digs inside and makes it compost and everything like that. Yeah. People in Eugene know this very well. Anything to be thrown away, they will embrace. Yeah. In fact, if you go to the market and try to buy husk, it is more costly than the grain. Yeah, this is what it is. So, nothing is useless. That's what is there. That is the intelligence of this Ishvara. So you don't have to look for Ishvara somewhere. Where? I told you, call it Ishvara where. You'll stop asking where. Everything you see, this becomes a meditation. This itself is a meditation, and you can have a weekend day, an hour, every week. You can set aside an hour, an hour of getting acquainted with Bhagavan, with Ishvara. How? Just go for a walk. Look upon every dog that you meet as God, as a manifestation, its intelligence, its personality. Every rock, even if it doesn't talk, is Bhagavan. Everything, the road is Bhagavan, the weather is Bhagavan, the clouds or the lack thereof, Ishvara. You look for Ishvara everywhere, not look for. Look upon everything as Ishvara. This is what is the whole thing. It's like spending time with many pots and saying, you are also clay, you are also clay, you are also clay. You have some glaze, but you are clay. You are clay. You have some paint on it. You are clay. I call you a Diwali light because I light you at Diwali time, but you are also clay. Oh, you are in the form of a, tulsi pot, tulasi, this sacred basil, but you are also clay. You are in form of a regular pot, nothing special about you, but you are also clay. So like this, the same thing, you have to see the substance as Ishvara and the intelligence as Ishvara, the manifestation. And then in doing this whole manifestation, this so-called act of manifestation, Ishvara has not become less than that. But then that Ishvara, we also saw last few times, transcends the creation, because the creation depends on Ishvara. Ishvara does not depend on creation, like even the pot depends on clay. Am I saying it correctly? Yes. The clay does not depend on pot. The pot is an incidental manifestation as far as the clay is concerned. Up till now I was with you, but this Ishvara being the Jagat, I don't mind. Everything in the Jagat is Ishvara. But then the transcendental, there is where I have the problem. That means Ishvara is where? Question mark. No. Ishvara is where means you have to point to yourself. That which transcends the creation is that which objectifies the creation. How beautiful is that? So therefore, if everything is Ishvara, any one thing can be invoked as Ishvara. That is why the Hindus don't have any problems. They can do puja in open air, no problems, without any materials, even though, there are elaborate materials everybody brings, so that everybody can participate. And so that some karma is exhausted when they bring things for yajna, They have to bring ghee, they have to bring wood, they have to bring all these things. And then people are given a list and asked to sign up, and then they have to bring. Because otherwise they will not bring, They will say, let somebody else bring. So this way some of, because you're participating together, you have to go shopping, you have to get this and that. And some karma is, exhausted because the yajna, the ritual is done for the common good. So some karma is gone, some papa is exhausted. That's why we have all these. Otherwise, without any materials, no problem. Most of the rituals used to be done at the river bank. And you don't have any representation of Ishvara. You are supposed to start with Ganesha. Why? Because this is the manifestation, a particular invocation of Bhagavan to cut out all the obstacles. So, but then I have to have a manifestation of Ganesha. He has to have a trunk, and then flappy ears, elephant face, Gajavadane, you have to do all these things, Gajavadana, all these things. And so where to do? You just take some sand or silt from the river, make a nice ball, you go like this, make the ears, and then turn it around, go like that, make the trunk, and then go like that, make fat, legs, finished. And then give him a crown, pick some tuft of grass and, put it on the head. so that you don't accidentally step on it. And then you do the puja and then you just, put it back in the river. Why? Because it's all one. The river is Bhagavan, everything is Bhagavan, but just for the sake of my connection and concentration, I just have a form. That's all. Because that which I am invoking transcends all forms and names. It is in fact the truth of me. So I have to get to know Ishvara in both the ways. I have to get acquainted with Ishvara as everything, every event, because the event also is not separate. Every object, every subject, every event, every happening, animate or inanimate things, everything is Bhagavan. So anything that happens when the doorbell rings, okay, there is some news coming. And I don't know if it is good news or bad news. It may be the neighbor complaining, who knows. Or it could be somebody delivering a nice parcel, I don't know, or cake, or something is coming, I don't know. But that anticipation and that greeting is all from the place of whatever comes, let me be able to receive, because whatever is ringing at the door is Ishvara. What if it's a complaint? It is Ishvara. It's teaching me something. It's teaching me to slow down. It's teaching me to not make too much noise. Perhaps it's time to be quiet. So I look at everything, starting with my own dreams. Carl Jung said this. Every dream, he said, is an unopened letter. I like that very much. Of course, you should be able to read the handwriting. Even you can open the dream. That's why many people have this, what is that called? Dream diary, journal, dream journal. They wake up and then they write down, And some of the dreams are ridiculous. I was Superman, I flew from house to house, and then I saved some people along the way. I had so much power, I was able to fly in the dream. Some of them is just ridiculous and you don't even feel like writing it down. But Carl Jung says, write it down. You should be able to get to know the metaphors in your dream. Because they are only your metaphors, because they are made from your memory, your desires, your longing, your fears. So you should get to know them for the sake of knowing this psychological order and your own psychology. That is the whole idea. But of course, most of the letters that Carl Jung talked about remain unopened because one doesn't know how to read the letters. And some of them are forgotten also when you wake up in the morning, who remembers? And so therefore, like this, every single thing in the universe is a message from Bhagavan. And that Bhagavan ultimately is you only, but we are trying to get to know this Bhagavan. This is our problem. If I am that Bhagavan, then why should I get to know? Because you don't know, and that self-ignorance is causing problems. And if Bhagavan is there in the whole universe, then how can it be me? That again requires some patience, some maturity to understand. The observer is Bhagavan, the observed is also Bhagavan, the observed resolves into the observer does not resolve. Yeah, but that doesn't resolve my question. Keep listening. What else can I say? Keep listening with patience. Have a heart for yourself, you will get it. How will you not get it? Give it a benefit of doubt, give it a chance. Don't dismiss it before you understand. This is the society of instant gratification. If I don't understand Ishvara in one lecture, never mind that I have been ignorant for many lifetimes. But if I don't understand Ishvara in one lecture, then that means Vedanta does not work. It doesn't mean Vedanta does not work. It means you got hot and bothered and got up and left. That's all it is. You got impatient. And for the pramana, for this means of knowledge to work, you have to allow it to work. And allow also some extra time for the resistances, the blocks, the fears which cause the non-understanding to drop. Do yourself that favor. Just give yourself some time and suspend, if you can, all the questions that are coming up. Suspend them and listen. So, get acquainted with Ishvara week, You can try this for 1 week. Look upon everything as Ishvara and everyone as Ishvara. Transcend the name and form of that person and see that even if they have showered you with abuses, that there may be a message there for you, which you may not be immediately able to decode, but just sit with it. See that. That is one aspect of getting to know Ishvara. How else can I get to know Ishvara? Start a conversation. You have so much time to update your book, Facebook, yeah, thank you. Yeah. And then tweet all your, whatever you had for breakfast, lunch and dinner. Yeah, everything should be under 100 words or something like that, 140 characters. Yeah. Inside that you have to, come up with some pithy sayings. How many pithy sayings can you come up with? They become pitiful sayings. Yeah. Keep tweeting, I ate, I drank, now I'm going to the bathroom. This is the whole thing. Yeah, for that you have time, but you don't have time to have a conversation with Ishvara. Yeah, tweet Ishvara. Yeah. This is what you have to do. How to have a conversation? This is that conversation we call prayer. I'm calling it a conversation because I don't want to bring on hives in the body of the shrotas, the listeners. Yeah, because as soon prayer, I'm off. Yeah, I don't know how to pray, neither do I want to learn. But call it a conversation. And see the fun of it, because really it's a conversation with yourself. Which self? The self that has projected this universe, really. It's ultimately you. So have a conversation and say, for example, how would this conversation look like? Say that all these days I have been learning how to look at you and everything as you, but you are not making it easy over there. Yeah. Have a conversation like that. You're not making it easy, You have only shown the bad side, what I think is the bad side of you, and therefore I'm not warming up to this conversation. That's a conversation. And believe it or not, in our tradition, that is a prayer. That is a prayer. But we are going to call it a talk. Have a talk. Have a talk. And then you can get a little more after this initial, angst and the fear of doing it wrong, and then saying wrong things to Ishvara. Say whatever you want, doesn't matter. After this initial angst is overcome, the conversations start to take on a playful and a fun note. They can. Like, for example, you can say, if you are really Ishvara, and if you really exist as the truth of me that I cannot see because I am it, then change a few things in my life. Let's see the extent of your powers. You who have effortlessly exhaled this whole universe, and you have done this. Show me what you can do. For you, this is a small thing. All I'm asking is just to have a couple of friends in my life. I'm lonely. Yeah. I just want some friends that I can talk and have some tea with. I'm a little lonely. So you have been, the author from everything from Hiranyagarbha, the original, potential to manifest, to the egg of the dinosaur, to egg of the smallest to the biggest egg. Everything is you. And you who are the creator of everything, all these complex things you have created. You can't manifest a couple of friends for me? You who is all power, all knowledge. This is what I learn week after week, get up at 7 o'clock in the morning for this. And then, I've been doing my part. I have been learning about you. And I'm now in this Get to Know Ishvara week. And you can't manifest a couple of friends, come on. You can't introduce them to me. I've tried so hard to meet all these people and all the wrong kinds of people come. All losers. And all people needing rescue. All the time I have to get them out of a pickle and dry them out and put them on a clip. These are the people, all dependent idiots I'm getting in my life. You can't just give some two healthy friends. Just two, okay, not even more, I'm not asking for a big potluck room full of people. Just two. So one as backup. One is enough. But considering they are human beings, they could be inconsistent, they could fall sick, they could get sick of me, and so therefore two, okay? Yeah, I'm just saying, somebody to just, talk to at my level. Somebody who's not always needing things all the time. Give me this, give me that. Oh, I'm in another crisis and I'm in another situation and help me, rescue me and all these things. I'm sick of doing that. This is a prayer. This is a prayer. This is a conversation. This is a prayer. And say that as though you mean it. Yeah. You can't just say, oh, yeah, I'm just doing this as a homework and an exercise. With two friends, you can give it, whatnot. Nothing will happen. Nothing will happen. Yeah. Say it. Mean it. Yeah. Mean it. Enter into this conversation with the same fervor as with which you might participate in a 4-year-old's tea party with all kinds of teddy bears and dolls. So when you go to this tea party, what are there? Empty cups, empty teapot, and then, but you say, oh, this is so delicious. You can't even hold the cup, it is so small. That time you don't feel foolish. That time you enjoy yourself. So here also, enter into it with that same enthusiasm. Yeah, but it's all make-believe. It is make-believe anyway. Don't give me all that. Enter into it. And then see what happens. What if nothing happens? Arey, you haven't even tried it. Yeah. But then if something happens, also there is a problem. That means there is one fellow sitting there watching and I'm praying to that fellow and that fellow is dispensing something. No, not necessarily. This is a conversation with your alter ego that you have placed at the altar. That's all it is. And since you affect the whole universe, you really affect, you matter. You think I'm just a mindless cog in some mindless machine called the Jagat and my actions don't matter, they matter. You matter, in fact you're the only thing that matters. And even if you can't digest that matter, at least know that you matter. And this is how to test this, whether I matter or not. You affect this whole conversation. And you are the converser and you are the one that is hearing this conversation also. And we'll take both the outcomes. What if I don't meet the friends? Well, then what we will say is that perhaps the conversation has to be repeated. Yeah. Why? Is Ishvara deaf? Ishvara is not deaf. Perhaps the conversation is not complete. There is something that needs to happen. So if the prayer, the conversation is not answered, it doesn't mean it's not answered. Mark Twain said this very beautifully. Every prayer has an answer, he said. Sometimes the answer is no. You can't say the prayer is not answered. So what if Ishvara says no? How mean? What can he have against me having two friends? How mean can that be? Here he is dispersing all his grace, her grace, to some undeserving idiot down the street, and then for me, depriving me of just 2 friends. I'm not asking for, diamonds and big things. I'm asking for 2 people that I can just hobnob with. Well, it may lead one, you'll be surprised. Or maybe you won't be surprised, but it may lead one, the conversation may lead one to think of why these kinds of losers are in my life. What is it about me that perhaps I have to change? What kind of mixed messages am I giving in seeking these friends and friendships? Do I have a board written on my forehead which only such people can read, Lifeguard. I'm here to rescue. And if I do have a pattern of rescuing people, what for is this pattern? Where does this come from? And I told you the Vedantic tradition, there is only one mantra. What is that mantra? Om Sahana Vavatu. No. You spot it, you got it. So the person that you might be throwing life jackets to, maybe there is an inner being that needs to be rescued first. And my fear at looking at it is making me project that need for rescue onto other people and conveniently surround my life with such people so that I can keep rescuing and not rescue that which is really needing rescue. So see, the prayer was answered. If it got you to this place, that means the prayer was wonderfully answered. So there is some inside job needing to be done. Some tinkering needing to be done to get to a place, a healthy place within myself, so I can truly, go after other people also that are equally healthy. Yeah, this is what it is. Otherwise it becomes a dysfunctional mess. And if the prayer is answered, wow, wonderful. And if there is Shraddha, and if one is, born in the Hindu tradition, one more way to look at it is, what might be some of the karmic impediments? And how to pray again to resolve the karmic impediments that is keeping me from meeting people. Meeting the kinds of people that are on my own wavelength. That is some extra things that you can do. So you see, this is the conversation. This is how you can ask for things. And it's not even asking for things. It's affecting the universe, really. This universe of names and forms that I see as, that I greet with a certain trepidation every day, I befriend as Ishvara. And then I know I affect it. And what is the measurement of this affectation? How do I know I affect it? This is through these conversations I know I affect it. Yeah, because something always comes. Every action has a response. Prayer is an action, the conversation is an action. The response will come. Not in the way you think that some echo will come. Hello, yes, this is Ishvara talking. I have received your many voicemails that you have left for me. That's not how the answer is going to come. Yeah, it will come in subtle ways. Just like I told you the other day. You may think of a thing. You may think of somebody. And you have not thought of that person in 50 years. Suddenly you think of that person and you get a message from that person. That doesn't show that, you and Ishvara get along very well. That doesn't show that Ishvara is prompt. No. What does that show? Is that you affect the world that you live in. You have a way, you have a say. And the prayer is all about having a say. And that is how you discover that you really are that Ishvara that you have been praying to. You are that. But you have fun praying, because already you talk to yourself. So this is not a big deal. Sometimes it happens in public. You're on the road. I have seen people, in the walks, I see all kinds of people when I go for a walk. Somebody gesticulating, talking to themselves. First I thought they were addressing me. I said, can I help you? No, 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 I'm talking to myself. Namaha. Yeah, because the person was saying like this. I thought they were calling to me. Already you talk to yourself. Make a big deal out of it. Make it official. Make it a social fact. And then say that I am appealing to the highest, and the most revered and the part of me, the aspect of me that is unaffected by samsara. I'm appealing to that bird that is not a berry-holic, that is not eating the berries, the one who is watching. I'm appealing to the Ishvara within me. And since I cannot access it within, I'm looking everywhere and seeing Ishvara as everything. And here is my prayer. And so you can play with this and have fun. And this is what is the substance of what we call miracles. This is how miracles takes place, and you call it a miracle. Oh, I wished for something and I got it. Wonderful. And sometimes what I wished for something bad and I didn't get it. Also great. Yeah. It's like the story of the king with the annoying minister. You know that story, right? Yeah, everybody will say no because they want to hear it again. This king was there who had an annoying minister. King said, Ishvara, who is that? I don't believe in this Ishvara. And I don't want to don't give me all your bhashan. Bhashan means speeches. Don't give me all these speeches. I don't want all these things. I just want to play and have fun. And life is short. You die and then that's it. He was a Charvaka, the king. And his minister, was always trying to calm him down because he was very impetuous and reckless. He lived his life, wine, woman, song, not necessarily in that order, but it kept repeating itself. That's so just a life of total, bhoga. And and he was all the time disappointed because he couldn't get his way. The more raga dvesha you have, the more disappointed you are. This is the way of the world. He's always disappointed. And so they went on this hunt. What else will they do? Yeah, if you don't hunt here, you keep hunting outside. So this is what it is. What you have to do is hunt all the wild animals here. Otherwise, it is a projection. You go for the hunt outside. So he went for the hunt, and then, what happened was that slipped and fell and, cut himself very badly. Slipped and fell and something caught against something, and then he cut his hand, and then the minister was very concerned, tore off his piece of clothing, bandaged him. And he said, Ishvara does everything for your own good. Shut up! Here it probably needs stitches, it is probably infected, here we are in the middle of the woods, what good can come out of this? And your dhoti had even more germs than the cut itself, and then you have wrapped it with your dhoti, and you want me to be happy? And you say everything happens, how can this be for their own good? And then they found out that they lost their iPhone in this skirmish and they didn't know how to get back to the palace. They were lost in the woods. They looked to the left, they looked to the right, and then, and then what did the minister say? The annoying minister said, Maharaj, Ishvara does everything for your own good. Shut up. Keep quiet. And then, don't worry, when evening falls, I look for Dhruva, the pole star, which shows always, which is due north, and then we'll know how lost we are. We may not be able to find our way, but at least we'll know how lost we are. Evening falls, and then along with the evening comes the fog. The fog rolls in and they're not able to see a single star. This everyone in Eugene knows what that is like. And so, they're not even able to, they don't even know that there are stars in the sky. It's that thick cloud of a fog. And then he says, never mind, sire. Ishvara does everything for your own good. Shut up! You can't even see a single star or moon, nothing. We don't even know where we are. At least moon, if we see, we know if it's the rising moon, it is the west. Nothing. What is this? It all happens for your own good, Maharaj, your majesty. You know, and he just takes one rock and throws at him, and the minister ducks, you know, because he's so impatient. Then they have to sleep. They find a clearing a little bit so that, you know, and the minister takes very good care of him and, you know, makes him sleep and brings him, you know, takes off some more of his dhoti and puts it as a covering and makes sure and fans him while he sleeps and makes sure he has a good sleep. Minister also drops off to sleep. Then they wake up in the early morning to some drum beats. And then the king yawns and says, "Oh, drum beats? You know, I'm not at the palace. What is this drum beats?" And they see that they are surrounded by a tribe of people beating the drums and coming closer. And right next to them is a cauldron of hot water. Big cauldron. Bada cauldron. And then the minister also wakes up. He says, "Maharaj, see, didn't I tell you? We were lost in the woods. It all happens for our... Ishvara does everything for our own good. Now these friendly people will show us the way to the palace and tell us how to go back." The friendly people were not at all friendly, as it turns out. What were they? Animals. Oh. They said they thought they were coming closer to their lunch, and it was some big festival of some ancestor king in their tribe, and they wanted to have a human sacrifice. That is why they had already done all the incantations and the drum beats in this sanctified cauldron of hot water, and garam masala had been put, salt had been put. The only thing that it was waiting for was the main ingredient. Yeah. So then the current chief, a fine man, clapped his hands, and two people came and caught hold of these people, and they said that who is the biggest person here, because that is the person who's fit as a sacrifice to our ancestor deity. And the minister happily pointed to the king, and the king said, "What? It all happens for your own good, Maharaj. Ishvara does everything for your own good." And the king is just, like everything that the king said has to be censored because it's not repeatable. Yeah. All the 4-letter words in every language, including Sanskrit, he just had a Sahasranama of 4-letter words against the minister. And then they marched the king down to the medicine man. And then the medicine man, because he was examining the king to make sure that he's a fit sacrifice, and suddenly saw the bandage and said, "What is that?" "Oh, yesterday I got cut." "No, you cannot be you cannot be the sacrifice. You are imperfect. Some blood has fallen, so you are not whole. And the king was so angry that he was going to offer up the minister. And he did. He said, "Oh, the minister you'll take?" "No. We don't, our deity doesn't want the second best. We only want the best, so we'll have to, go on a conquest again." So then they were free, and then the tribesmen told them where to go to find to put them on the right path. And then again the minister whispered, "See, everything that Ishvara does is for your own good." And this time the king was silent. This is what it is. I feel like it's not for my own good. Own good means what? Good here doesn't mean fulfilling the ragadveshas. Good means one's own, hita, one's own growth, one's own being. In fact, nothing is bad. This is the whole growth that I come to. And I can't come to this growth without these conversations. Already I am having internal conversation. What's wrong with me? Why am I not getting what I want? Direct it. Make it outward. And put Ishvara in front. Ishvara, what is wrong with me? Full stop. See, I'm giving the ABCs of this conversation. Yeah. This is the only relationship that you can have with that you cannot see, with that which you already are, with that truth which you cannot experience as an object or a person. So you personify the truth of yourself that you're studying about. And that personification is called prayer. And through this you know that you matter, your words matter, because the answers come. What's wrong with me? The first answer that comes is all from the ragadveshas. Oh, plenty of things. How much time you got? I'm going to tell you exactly what's wrong with you. Yeah. Keep asking again. Go a little deeper. What's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? And keep changing the emphasis. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Keep changing the emphasis for good measure. And then you go deeper. You go a little deeper. You see that, okay, actually there is nothing wrong with me. It's all okay. Actually, I'm not doing so badly. Food is there in the fridge, at least for today. And then, tomorrow is a new day. And right now I'm not having, aches and pains that are unmanageable. Right now I have money in the bank. Right now I can bank on a few people. Right now, even though I don't like Ishvara, I seem to be enjoying this class on Ishvara. So right now everything is okay. So I'm okay. Perhaps I'm okay. And in sleep everything seems to be okay. Perhaps I'm okay. So the first answer that comes, don't believe, because that is a very surface level. That is the ahankara answering. Just keep asking. And the answer may not come from within. It may come from without. What's wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Then somebody calls and says, you are so special in my life. That is an answer. Why am I so special? I never thought. Oh, because when I really needed you, you were there. You were really there for me. You are a true friend. Oh, thank you. All 28 come out. Why? Because everybody takes out the wisdom teeth in this country. So the answer may come in so many ways, but when it comes, you see how much you really affect this universe. And then start having conversations on other people's behalf. I don't know how to help this person. Please show me the way. I don't know how to help this person. If you can, and if you are all this power and all this might, try. I give up. Yes, try that. And then you may call that person and say, I've been a bad friend. I don't know what to do for you. And the friend says, oh, actually all your prayers are working. This is our tradition. And this is our prayer. It is not some kind of a hierarchy. There is no hierarchy. There is no some strange entity somewhere, wagging its finger at you and you're supposed to pray, because if you don't, you become the prey for this entity. No! It is a beautiful dance in which I get to know slowly. I grow into my power of influencing this flow, for which I have to go with the flow, which is dharma. So I go with the flow, and when I go with the flow, I see that I have become the flow. Really, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. And that's why in our tradition, we have the freedom to relate to Ishvara in any which way. Yashoda related to Krishna as a mother. She was the mother, she was his mom. And what did, mom do? Mom loved to scold him. You think you are the creator of the universe? But to me, you are this butter-stealing infant that needs to be taught how to be in this universe. Yeah. She would have fun scolding him. Then for Mirabai, a saint in the medieval India, poet saint, her form of invoking Ishvara was in the form of Krishna. And it all started when she was 5, and she was a princess. She was looking from the balcony of the palace, and on the road there was a marriage procession going. And the groom was handsome, decked out nicely, with a nice turban, sitting on a horse, and then being led with an umbrella and being led to the bridal home for the wedding. Who's that? And the mother said, that is the groom. You know, he's going for his bride, he's going to his wedding. Oh, so fancy. And with the child's innocence, she asks, where is my groom, Mom? When is he going to come? How long I have to wait for my groom? Because she saw all the splendor. She saw all the diamonds in the turban and this glitter and this, nice horse with a nice, thing covering the saddle with a royal saddle and this man sitting on it, going. Of course, she was in awe. All this fanfare for this groom? Where is my groom? And the mother must have been very good at grooming the child. And the mother handed a beautiful figurine of Krishna and said, this is your groom. Always be married to him. He is your husband. He is your groom. And she took it seriously. She said, this is my love. This is my groom. And every day she prayed. That was her conversation. That was her relationship. That was the way of relating. And then when she became 18 years old or something like that, when she was of marriageable age, the parents said, oh, we have found this Raja of Mewar, this is in Rajasthan, we have selected him to be your groom. She said, too late, I already have a groom. I'm not going to marry this fellow. No, you have to. They force her to get married, and she says, my body you can force, but you cannot force me, who is already married. And then she told a stunned king, I'm not living with you. You may have married me. And it was some kind of a political alliance that happens between two royal families. You give me your daughter and I'll give you my this and that, and so that our kingdoms, which are side by side, nobody attacks them, and we have become one force. We share armies and we have become family. This was a political alliance. She said, you may have married me for political alliance or whatever your reasons were, we don't know. And she says, I don't care. And she repaired to the outhouse in the palace, a kind of a place where guests were kept, or some small cottage, with her Krishna. And she lived there. She refused to live with him. She said, I'm not married to you, you're a stranger. She just sang, danced, and she was in ecstasy because of this oneness that she felt with Ishvara. That oneness. She was just reveling in that oneness. Because this kind of conversation can only lead to that oneness. And if you only have the conversations without the knowledge, that oneness becomes an experience. An experiential oneness, where all the sorrow and the limitations temporarily resolve because they are overpowered by the connection to the limitless. But if these conversations are accompanied by the knowledge, by exposure to the teaching, it becomes an infinite oneness, because it's not a matter for experience, because you know the truth and the content of the experiencer. So what did she do? She just lived her life like that. And she became a political, embarrassment. Because if sometimes the king and the queen have to receive some guests, she was nowhere to be found. She's sitting there, she says, oh, I forgot because I was singing a bhajan. I just forgot that we had this appointment. She just refused to participate in anything. And so egged on by some of the ministers, the king decided to put an end to her life. He was not a bad man, but he had some, in-laws, some people, other, ministers and some extended family members who were not very kind. And so they found ways of trying to kill her to make it look like an accident. She had the greatest respect for the husband, and she would never badmouth him. She would say, it is my incapacity to live with him. He is a fine man. Look, how nicely he has kept me. Look how nicely he is giving me food and everything that I need, and wonderful things so that I can continue to pray and continue to be in this conversation in the form of song and dance. Her conversation took the form of song and dance. That was her bhakti. And then what? Bhakti means when you make the conversation real. That is bhakti. It's not some big thing there. Yeah. When it becomes real, that is devotion. If you're just doing it for the sake of it, it's not bhakti. It's not real. You have to make it real. This relationship has to be real. And so here, one time they sent her a snake. Yeah, not a rope, a snake. In Vedanta you have to specify when it's a real snake and when it's not, because most of the time it's not. They sent her a snake, a venomous viper, and then they sent it in a basket in which you send garlands. Yeah. And they had made sure that to keep the snake hungry so that it would be really ticked off and upset. Yeah. Because if it has just fed on a rat and you make it want to bite somebody, you even put it on somebody, it will just slither away. It doesn't want to bite you. It's too busy enjoying the rat which it's digesting. Yeah. Here they kept it hungry so it would be just angry. And then, the messengers got this basket which looked like a basket in which the garlands come. And he said, Rana, the king, has sent a garland for Krishna. And she said, really? How wonderful. And she opened the cloth that covered, and what happened? It really turned into a garland. Yeah. Of course, the Vedantin will ask the question, but why didn't it turn into a rope? What is held? What holds the flowers in the garland? Some kind of rope. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. And even if this is a make-believe story, when we come back, we'll decode this allegory and see what there is it might have to say to shed light on the situation here. 15-20 minutes, come back.